All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you're watching from. Man, let me tell you, it is surreal to be talking about the subject of today's show and the said anniversary of that said project. And of course, I'm talking about none other than Die Hard 2. Die Harder. And just to, dive a little deeper into that film, it's directed by Rennie Harlin. Of course, it's a sequel to 1988's Die Hard and sees the return of reluctant hero John McClane, played, of course, by Bruce Willis as he goes up against rogue military operatives seeking to seize control of Dulles International Airport in Washington, D.C. Released in July of 1990, which means that the film will officially hit its 35 years in just a couple of months. The franchise now sits at 5 films versus 2 as of 1990, of course, which what we're going to be talking about today. As we look back on this iconic installment in the action franchise, I, of course, will not be alone in reflecting on its impact and legacy, as I have a good friend of mine joining us to look back on the film. Today's guest is known for his iconic roles in The Shawshank Redemption, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, Bill and Ted's Face the Music, as well as Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, which celebrated 30 years as of January this year. However, we will be discussing his iconic role, which you can see here in the artwork that I have, as the villainous mastermind known as Colonel Stewart. It is my pleasure to welcome back onto the show Mr. Bill Sadler. Bill, how are you?
I'm I'm good, Brandon. How are you?
I am great. I'm great. So, without further ado, I figured we, of course, dive right in. As I said, very surreal to be, talking about this because I've talked about this briefly with you offline, and the fact that in terms of my movie journey, if you will, where you have a whole bunch of firsts. This was my first rated R movie, so it always is stuck in my head as my first rated R movie that I was able to see as a. Yes, I was still a youngster,
You were
obviously,
a
but
young.
yes,
You were
but it
a very
was a
young
first rated
man.
R film. So I remember making a big deal out of it, saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm seeing a rated R movie." But be that as it may, diving right into the film itself, can you talk a bit about how you got involved, or how that process came about in getting involved with this movie?
I was doing. I think what led to it was primarily was this episode of Tales from the Crypt, the very first episode of Tales from the Crypt, The Man Who Was Death, because the producer of that
Joel
was
Silver.
Joel Silver,
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and I think that sort of put me on his radar. Um, I was shooting in Texas. I was shooting a film with Dennis Hopper directing called The Hot Spot, and I heard they were casting this thing, and there was some interest. And when it, I'm not sure whether Dennis called them up and said, "You got to think about this guy for the villain" or not. He may have helped along the way, but I'm not sure. But in any case, I was called in to meet with Bruce and Rennie Harlin, Bruce Willis and Rennie Harlin and Joel in a room, the um, the four of us, and I read a little bit with Bruce, and that was it. I was all of a sudden I was Colonel Stewart.
For sure, for
which was
sure.
what which was great. It was I'm not exactly sure why. Uh, if from the very get go in my career in Hollywood, I was like villain, bad guy, villain, bad guy, villain, bad guy. Boy meets girl, boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy dismembers girl. But in any case, I'm happy that you know, there are 25 guys standing behind me that would have loved to, you know, trade places with me. So I'm grateful that I'm grateful that it came down the way it did. I was terrified, I have to say, because I had seen the first Die Hard movie, and this was like my third film ever.
Mm.
And I had done lots and lots and lots of theater, but I'd not been in front of a camera all that much, and it's a different animal. Um, and it was also the first movie was so big. I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
it was this huge blockbuster that everybody saw, and it put Bruce Willis on the map as a movie star, instead of just a TV star.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
well, to
I was sort of following in some big footsteps, um, and that was, I felt the pressure.
Well, actually, that's a great segue. You must be psychic because that actually was going to be my next question, Bill, is,
What's that?
just that idea of feeling, those shoes. Of course, in the first film, you have the iconic villain role of Hans Gruber, played by the late, great Alan Rickman. And on paper, you would think that he's a physical threat. And don't get me wrong, there are times where he is very physical, that he is physical in that film, but he's more of a cerebral threat to
Right.
the physicality of Bruce Willis. But with this film, it's quite different in that not only are you challenging Bruce, on a cerebral level, but also on a physical level in terms of the character's capabilities. So was there a lot of discussion in terms of kind of raising the ante, if you will, of being able to provide that challenge to John McClane on multiple levels, more so than in the first film?
Um, yeah, they got me into a training session with Benny the Jet, Benny Akides, and to learn the kata that I did at the beginning, and to learn the moves, so that when we finally fight on the wing of the plane, it would look like I could take him apart.
Yeah.
And I did. I kicked him right off the wing of the plane. I don't know if you remember.
Oh no,
He
I remember. Yeah.
he fell right off the wing of the plane, and he
You
opened the gas
technically won. The
tank.
villain won. He at the
Yeah, the villain
if you're
won. I
really
mean,
if you're really getting technical.
he was like, I'm on the ground. Oh, now what do I do? And then he lights up the gas, and it was like, oh shit, forgot about that part. But yeah, they got me into train. I went to the wardrobe fitting, and I may have told this story before, but I went. There was no nude scene in the script, the script that I read, and I went to the wardrobe fitting and tried on all of these different costumes that Colonel Stewart wears, and we finished, and I said Rennie was there, and the wardrobe people, and I said, what am I wearing in the hotel room scene? And Rennie said, well, Bill, actually, I was thinking you would be nude. And and he's Finnish. That's why he sounded like that. You would be nude. So I said, I thought about it for a minute, and then I thought, okay, I'll do it if you push the scene off to the end of the movie and give me get me a trainer, get me in the gym.
Yeah.
Get me a trainer and get me in the gym, and give me some time, a couple of months or 3 months or something, whatever however much time you can give me, and I'll do it. So that's what we did. And and then the pressure of filling Alan Rickman's shoes got even bigger, because now you're gonna be naked in the biggest blockbuster sequel of the summer. No pressure there. So anyway, I was very motivated. I wanted to I didn't want to look at this thing when I was 60 and say, oof, why didn't you do some sit-ups or something, you flabby old fart? So
Well, let me ask this. A lot of
I
times
worked
when
my
we
ass off, and that's my ass that you see. Was and 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 to be honest, now the physicality, I got good
yes,
at I got good at making it look like I could beat the crap out of him, right?
hmm
I
yeah,
mean, I learned enough to make it look like I knew what I was doing, um, which was fine, for the film.
yeah,
But on the day when we actually did the filming, did the fight on the wing, which is the fight on the wing was really the only physical encounter that I had on the in the show.
hmm
Um, but they hired there was a young man named Randy Hall who was a kickboxer, and so whenever it's funny when you watch it, uh, you can if you can see Bruce Willis's face, you're looking at the back of Randy Hall's head, and
okay,
when he does like a swinging kick with his boot across Bruce Willis's face, that's Randy Hall. They didn't trust my boot to get that close to Bruce's face. And when you see me, when the camera is over, looks like it's over Bruce's shoulder, and you're seeing me, it's
hmm
me, but it's me with Bruce's stand-in, Bruce's stunt double, who was I forget his name now, um, but they're very careful,
with your
as you can
yeah, very
imagine.
careful with the
It's
star,
like
making sure he
all you got,
doesn't mess up that mug, right?
one slip, and I break his nose or put a gash on his face or something. Where all filming comes to an end. We're gonna wait 3 weeks for that to heal, and
Gotcha.
so they were very careful, and it was great because Randy Hall, I didn't mind at all because Randy Hall made me look absolutely stunning. He made me look. He made it look like I could kick the cigarette out of your mouth without touching your nose, because he
For sure,
could.
for sure. Well, let me ask this. Well,
And I would probably take your nose with it. Was the problem? they were
let
just
me
being
ask this.
they're just being
In
they're
terms,
just being safe, and it's of course they're being safe. That's not unusual at all. And I love the stunt guys. They 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 make you look like $1,000,000. You know what I mean? They make you look so tough. Or you took that hit and that fall so hard, the audience wonders how you got up again.
or
Well,
being able to
you didn't.
sell.
You didn't get up again. They
I was going
did.
to say, or being able to sell, what you're doing when you're fighting them. Being able to sell how capable you are, as they can
Right.
really make you sell what you're
Right. Well,
doing. Yeah,
that's my job. That was all on me, to make it look like, I'm delivering this kick or this punch or
for
whatever.
sure, for
Um,
sure.
and it was great. It was just good fun. We chased the snow. Was my other one of my I mean, it was like a big part of that story is that
Is
we
the
needed
character of the
we
snow?
needed an airport, and we needed snow to to make this movie. And so we shot it all over the place. We started in Denver, and then Denver, Colorado, then Breckenridge, Colorado, then um, some of the place in Washington State. Then we went to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and then Alpena, Michigan, and then Lake Tahoe. And finally, they built the wing of the plane that we had to fight on was built in a soundstage um, at Fox, right in Los Angeles. So it was shot all over the place looking for snow.
Well, let me ask this: is there any truth to the fact that there was Uh, I guess it's been mentioned that there was snow that was brought to set or at least made. I guess there some was it, is there any truth to that, or is that completely
They
false?
they were always making snow. They
Okay.
they made snow everywhere we went. They were like,
Okay.
they had these huge fans, and they would drop. They had little plastic snow that they blew all over, which I'm sure is rotten for the environment. And but it looked like you were standing in a. It looked like you were in a blizzard, and that's
Yeah.
what they wanted. They wanted it to look like this awful blizzard we were all living in. When they ran out of that kind of snow, they used uh, instant potatoes, like potato flakes. They
Oh
used
man.
they used that, and it's flying at you, and you're trying to add. And then when they ran out of that, they used soap flakes, like ivory soap flakes,
Oh no.
which were incredible. Now that was the one that I remember being just awful. You'd like,
Because it keeps
you're
getting in
trying
your
to
eye.
do
Yeah.
you're trying to do your scene, and you get the tiniest flake of it in your eye, and it's like, oh, all right, hold it, and they got to wash your eye and blah blah blah. So um,
I was going to
anyway,
say it had to have been challenging
challenge.
just physically of
It
being
was
able to do that.
challenging. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for
It was.
sure.
And it was all new to me as well. I was not, um, you know, I was I was pretty inexperienced at that point. Um, so it was great fun. A lot of, I guess, a lot of pressure. I don't know. Um, I thought Alan Rickman was extraordinary in the first one. I thought he was, I thought he was brilliant, and made that film. You hated him so much, you know, and
But liked them too in
well,
some
yeah,
ways.
well, he was sort
He
of
was
this
so
charming,
charismatic,
yeah, this kind of chameleon, like charming. He's charming. He's funny. He's deadly.
ruthless. Yeah,
Yeah, he's ruthless as hell. Just like, yeah, okay, boom, shoot you in the face, um, and so the challenge was to create somebody who's that ruthless, who's that dangerous, for Bruce to have an opponent, you
for
know.
sure, for sure. And I feel like just in extension of what you're talking about, just talking about legacy in general. Um, I wanted to, talk about some scenes that perhaps, and I could be wrong about this, but it felt like they were improvised, and maybe they weren't. And perhaps some things in terms of like your fellow co-stars as well. But getting into the improvisation part, uh, I know you were mentioning at the top, of course, the iconic sequence that you have, the introduction of your character, of course. Um, that moment that you have, like that beat that you have, like at the very end before they cut away, when you're finally, using your remote control, was that
Oh, right,
already a
right.
part of that sequence, or did you decide to do that as
No,
if you were shooting the TV?
that was improvised.
Okay,
Grabbing the remote and spinning and shooting
act like you shoot the TV. Yeah.
like, yeah, like you did when you were a kid, boom. Um, and that just felt like fun, and it felt right, Um, they had there was a kind of an issue with shooting that nude thing, because the hotel room set had mirrors on the back wall.
Oh,
So
cameras.
no matter what you shot, they were trying to shoot the back side of me, but the front side of me was appearing in the mirrors, um, and it was that was challenging. That was, I don't know, the what was worse, doing playing the supervillain in a summer blockbuster sequel, or appearing nude in your third film. You'd be surprised how motivating that is. I was like, I lived in Gold's Gym for a while.
Well, Bill, let me ask you this: for that sequence, I know a lot of times because I feel like it's comparable when you're talking about what's needed in that scene. A lot of times when they have like love making scenes, right, between two actors, they'll like limit the amount of people that are on the set. Was that the similar thing that happened when you did that scene, or did you have
That
everybody
was a
there?
it was it was a it was a
It was a
let
closed set.
it was a closed set. It's supposed to be a
Okay.
closed set.
Okay. All
However,
right. Good.
when I
I
got
was about to
there,
say.
when I got there to shoot the scene, there was this row of chairs, like an audience. There was this big row of chairs, and Joel Silver sat right in the center. Um, the producer of the film, it was like, well, I've paid for this. Let me see. And I've never seen so many people on a set. I mean, I'm sure I'm exaggerating, but it felt like there were people bringing pizza in and
No way.
secretaries showing up with faxes for people, and then they broke for lunch and they all left, and I'm standing there in a you know in my bathrobe. It was like, we're going to shoot more of this after lunch. Well, I can't eat lunch and then do more of this stuff. So everybody left and then came back. It was like, it was just weird, but it felt like a if that was a closed set.
It doesn't
it, did,
sound
it didn't
closed.
feel very it didn't feel very closed to me. Maybe that's just me. It's supposed to be just, like the camera
Bare
guys.
bones, yeah,
Yeah,
crew.
yeah, the essential crew and the
Right.
director, and that's it. They you don't need the pizza delivery guys or the teamsters or the you know anyway. But it was, it was good, and I have to say that was it's a startling introduction for a character.
It is.
It's
It's very
shocking. It's a
jarring.
little.
Yeah.
It's shocking, and you're like, whoa, whoa, wait a second.
Right. Right.
Who the hell is this? Who's fighting with invisible people in a hotel room?
And to your
Who
point,
is
because
like,
I watched it, I was gonna say to your point, I watched it recently. It happens very soon into the film. Like
yeah,
you get
it's like in the first
introduced,
five
and
minutes.
yeah, it's close. It's sooner than that actually. It's like 2.5 minutes in. Like
Is that
I'll give a director credit. Like he paces it where he establishes a lot within the first 5 minutes
yeah?
with the
What time?
situation that McLean
Right.
is in, and then your character.
McLean in
So
his car is getting towed and blah blah blah.
yeah. And even your interaction, because that actually happens within the first 5 minutes of the film when you guys bump into each other.
We
It's like
bump
the
into
first,
each other.
yeah, it's like the first 5 minutes of the film. So
Quick behind the scenes note: Bruce Willis, being the kind person that he is, took his shoes off when we met we bump into each other in the airport,
yeah,
and he says, "You look familiar. Don't I know you from somewhere?" or something like that. And but he's taller than I am, right?
gotcha. Okay.
Uh, so he took his shoes off, and I left mine on, and in an effort to get so that he doesn't look like the villain is this little tiny person that he's
Right,
going to
right,
beat
right, right.
up.
Sure.
I mean, if they could have, they would have made me look like Dolph Lundgren or something. And I was just towering over him. But yeah, but he did. When we bump into each other, he's wearing his socks, and um,
I was going to say that's a great segue in talking about your co-stars. A lot of times when you are, especially in this situation where you are entering a franchise, right, and there's already an established train, so to speak, of players that are already or passengers that are already on board, and you're joining
Bonnie,
that train.
Bonnie,
Um, a movie is only as good, I feel, as the experience that you have with your leading man, leading lady, what have you. And it sounds like it was a great experience in terms of being able to be opposite of Bruce Willis.
I was, yeah, I think so. I think it, in some ways, it's you need a really good bad guy, and if you want to have a really good hero, you got to have a really good bad guy. And
Agreed.
that's
Yes.
that's the lesson of all the James Bond movies. Doctor No is, I mean, the villains, the Bond villains are iconic. You know,
Sure.
um,
Superhero films too. Same
yeah,
way.
they're super villains,
You have to have supervillains. Yeah.
and uh, and so that was I felt like that was sort of my task, was to be as evil as the, you know, be the mountain that he has to climb, sort of. But Bruce was great. To work with. He was, um, I mean, he was a big star already. He was the 800-pound gorilla, but he was respectful and fun and easy to work with. Um, I don't know how other people. I don't know how how other people felt working with him, but my interactions with him were terrific. He was great. He was. Uh,
And I mean, I was going to say to speak further on that, on some of the other, co-stars that you have. Of course, you had some incredible
oh,
ones that have gone on to do
John Amos.
some
Yeah,
amazing things. So, I mean, Robert Patrick, of course,
like
pre-Terminator too, like
yeah,
John Leguizamo. I
like
mean, I don't know.
Osamo. I mean, there's like that elevator door opens and you see all of these
Oh,
faces,
I
right?
got it.
All
I
my
got
bad,
it. Hold on.
all
Let me
my
see if I
bad
got it
guys
here.
together.
Here we go.
It's a who's who. They're great. They all went on to, you uh, to have film careers. It was it was cool. It was cool. I mean, that part of it felt like an ensemble, and um, the bad guys.
And I was going to say, and speaking of that, of those
My
interactions,
team of evil.
I was
So
going to say, and those interactions that you had with them, were there any ones that come to mind that still stick in your head that you were like, okay, I can see something there. Like they may be going somewhere. Well, whether it was with with Robert or with John, where just in your minor interactions with them, or just observing how they worked, or was there any things that came to mind, in perhaps because I know a lot with a lot of those henchmen, you guys were all spread out. So I know there were some instances where maybe you didn't really get to interact with them, and then in
Yeah,
some cases you
they were
were.
kind of sprinkled around the movie, and we didn't. I didn't have an awful lot of interaction with them after after we launched the thing. I remember. There's one story I'll tell you. The we all myself and our henchmen were gathered around the nose cone of the this aircraft, and Bruce Willis is in the cockpit, and we're going to shoot automatic weapons at him, and then throw grenades that land in the cockpit. And it's a great moment in the movie when he's got, what's he going to do? He's stuck.
Of course, yeah.
We're gonna, he's a dead man, but he gets in the ejector seat and shoots
Of
himself
course, the iconic scene,
up
yeah.
in the sky.
Yeah.
But when we filmed it, I would, I guess I had spent too much time running around the barn as a little kid with my BB gun, acting out, rehearsing for this movie. We're all standing. Myself and the bad guys are standing around the nose cone, and we've got live blanks. We're all firing full loads. So it's deafening, right? And it's
Right.
bang, 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 and it's raining brass because my stuff, my shells are ejecting out and hitting the next guy and that guy. So anyway, we did the first take, and Tim Cooney, the sound mixer on the show, came up to me. Let's see, and he took me aside, away from everybody else, and he said, "Bill, you don't have to make that sound with your mouth anymore." So, so apparently, I was shooting my machine gun and going, you know. So there. So then I tried not to make that sound anymore.
Gotcha. Well, as you well know, I always, make it a point to do this with any of these anniversaries, and giving each of the guests the opportunity and the space to say it is perhaps the things that you are most proud of, with in working on this film, and perhaps things that you could do differently. I mean, we just talked about some folks that were in the film and you perhaps didn't have an opportunity to work alongside, but
Right. Subsequently I've worked with almost all of them. I mean, John
sure.
Leguizamo, I did When They See Us, the
Yeah.
Ava DuVernay piece about the Central Park Five. I guess it's funny that it doesn't feel like 30 years has gone by, which is remarkable.
30 and some change. 30
Yeah,
and some change.
okay, 30 and change. I'm
Yeah. 35.
like
Yeah.
35 years.
Yeah.
Uh,
1990.
yeah. What the hell was I doing? I'm, I guess I'm proud of the fact that it's part of the legacy. It's part of my oeuvre, my body of work.
Yeah.
And I think we did it well. We did it well enough that people still enjoy it, which is remarkable. Because there are a lot of films that they just don't hold up. They don't, they feel dated when you watch them now, and they were, no matter, even though they felt great when they first came out. But this one apparently is a Christmas classic, which I had no idea we were making, our version of It's a Wonderful Life.
Right. In some
Or
very twisted
Miracle on
way, right? In some
34th
very
Street.
twisted.
How is this a Christmas classic? That's the Christmas spirit. Let's get an icicle and stab him in the eye, and oh my God! So it's not Christmas until you've watched Die Hard and Die Hard 2.
Oh yeah.
It's not.
Oh yeah. It's not. Nope.
And I'm grateful. I mean, I'm truly, I don't understand it, but I'm grateful because residuals,
Sure. Yes.
which are terrific, and also it's a very, very strange thing to think that this moment in time, this little got captured and it's going to keep going, long after myself and Bruce and the rest of us are gone. People will still, I hope, I hope people will still enjoy the ride. I think it's a really fun ride for the audience, and that's why those films are as much fun as they are.
Okay. And what about the opposite? Maybe
what I
not
would do,
that's necessary, or wish you could do differently. Either or.
what I would do differently.
Yeah. Or have you ever thought of, and maybe there isn't anything.
What I would do differently. It came out pretty well. You know what I would do differently if I were playing it now?
What's that?
I'm a better actor now than I was then. It's just practice and, you know,
Life experience.
life experience. I'm a better, I'm just a better actor now than I was then. The tools that I brought to the table then were different.
Yeah.
But I would, I think I would try to find the humor more. If I could do it again,
Yeah.
um, I would get Randy Hall to beat up Bruce Willis, just like because because now I'm sure I would hurt I would pull something trying to kick him now. Um, and, uh, but I watch Alan Rickman, and part of what's really fun is how much fun he's having, um, you know, peacocking around. And I think I would have done more of that. I would have tried to find more laughs, more dark humor in this guy, as opposed to being quite so um, laser focused on the mission, which I was. Um,
But I would
I
argue,
mean,
I was gonna say, I would argue, Bill, that like maybe it was great that that didn't happen because it provided a distinct difference between yourself and the first villain, and not having too many similarities with the first villain. The fact that you were so laser focused, provided a nice dichotomy to Bruce Willis's character, who's far more charismatic and kind of like loose with
he's
everything.
the
So
right. Well, he's joking all the way through it.
yeah, like that contrast actually I felt worked.
You're
So
right.
it's
It
funny.
was it was perfect. It was
But
no, I don't know what
as
I don't know what I would I don't know what I would change then. I mean, I guess I would have more fun. I try not to be quite so terrified of the whole prospect of, being naked or filling that fulfilling that role in the summer blockbuster sequel. There was a fair amount of pressure on me.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Well, I know you had mentioned, just moments ago of, you always hope to have a lot of your films or the work that you have in those said films be remembered. Of
Mm.
course, I've had you on the show more than once. There are a laundry lists, sir, if you are not aware, that fall under that category, that I'm sure time and time again people will reflect back on in terms of your body of work. But before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you? How is everything going with the music?
I'm going to do. Oh well, I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to
Okay,
do.
what's the thing?
I've been writing. Well, first of all, I've been writing. I've been playing guitar and writing songs since I was a little kid, and it's sort of been the secondary. It's been fun. It's been a great release, and I play, and I've played in clubs and so on from time to time. And coming up at the Town Crier in Beacon, New York, on May 16th, I'm going to do a couple hours of my songs.
Awesome, awesome.
And I have an album which is available now. It's called The Kitchen Tapes, William Sadler, The Kitchen Tapes. And if you go to therealwilliamsadler.com, therealwilliamsadler.com, not the fake one. Um, you can purchase the vinyl or the CD, and the money goes to St. Jude's. It all
Nice.
it all goes to the Children's Hospital. But the songs are great. You're not going to believe how amazing. They're funny. They're sweet. They're well done. I have some wonderful musicians who add violins and pianos, and um, it's I have no illusions of that I'm going to be a singing star, but I am a storyteller, and these songs are stories and enjoyable. So it's called The Kitchen Tapes, therealwilliamsadler.com. It's like you can get the vinyl, you can get the CD, but if you do, the money goes to St. Jude's.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I was gonna say also you had didn't you recently have a what is it a audio related project? Give a shout out to Robert Burnett out there. What was there a project that you worked on in terms of providing your voice to, or am I incorrect about that? I guess like a noir related project that you provided your voice to, or am I?
May have, I don't remember, but
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it there. May 16th, coming right up. Be there or be square. If you're anywhere near Beacon, New York, it's the Town Crier Cafe in Beacon on May 16th, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I'll be singing my heart out.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, there you guys have it. As always, it's always a pleasure to have Mr. Sadler join us and reflect on a iconic role in his filmography. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there and see you guys soon. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.